Tag, you're it. Yes, people, yes, people. As I'm recording this, it's franchise tag deadline day. So, big focus, Christian Wilkins, Antoine Winfield Jr., Baker Mayfield, Danielle Hunter, much those discussed. We'll talk about those who did and who didn't get tagged ahead of the deadline. Also, those that are hitting the free agency market come next week when everything becomes official. Russell Wilson being released, we'll talk about that. Jamal Adams as well, his former teammate for a brief bit in Seattle. Talk about him. Nurkic, Jusuf Nurkic. While the Phoenix Suns have been quiet, it feels among the playoff contenders the last number of weeks have some good news and some history looking forward to, as Nurkic had a first for 14 years as the NITN, a high of 31 rebounds in a game. First time since 2010. That is a very sad way to get rebounds and assists. Often get overlooked because they're not as official or as enticing looking as points scored. But rebounds and assists, those are certainly two of the keys in getting your team points and just in general contributing best a player can. And Nurkic, if only Bradley Beal can be 100%. That's the thing for the Phoenix Suns. If they can get Booker, Durant, Bradley Beal, Nurkic, those four particularly healthy, come playoff time, they have a chance against anyone. But that's certainly going to be key because we have not seen the big three, particularly Durant, Booker, and Beal, healthy a lot this season. But we'll see. As it currently stands, they would be the 6th seed in the West and would be facing the reigning NBA champion Denver Nuggets in the first round, which we know would be a tough task. They faced each other last year in the second round of the playoffs, and that was a bit of a fun series with the Nuggets being 2-0 and then the Suns tying up before the Nuggets were just like, we had enough, and then took the reins the last number of games. So we would see. Obviously, Beal would be different, but the Denver Nuggets have looked all more important and just as good if not better, this season than last season. Speaking on the topic of basketball, talk about the top team in the East currently, and perhaps the top team in basketball right now, the Boston Celtics, have won 11 straight behind a very good core of talent with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White. He's been improving. It's been fun to see. The Boston Celtics, obviously the big key for the Celtics will be Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But if they manage to win the chip, Kristaps Porzingis, that trade has to be looked at as one of the more fondled trades that has happened in recent time. Also, Drew Holiday, I'm getting him. It's been a stellar performance for them, and it's good to see. Now let's hope I don't jinx them, because as I'm recording this, they're playing Cleveland in Cleveland, and we know they can be a ruckus, but nonetheless. So, yeah, is what it is. Franchise tag. First, let's go over the only transition tag player. That is Kyle Duggar. Kyle Duggar of the Patriots. Duggar, he's been a stud. Has been a great safety, but he's certainly been a valid acquisition since being drafted a number of years ago by the Patriots. We know what the Patriots' role in their management, although new coaches and a bit of a new philosophy, we'll have to see gearing towards draft. But Duggar, interesting for him to get the transition tag, at least keep him under wraps before free agency temporarily. But yeah, cool there. As far as the franchise tag, a number of key contributors got tagged. So, T. Higgins, we know, Jerry Sneed last week. The big one, though, pretty much, we can say Josh Allen, first of all, of the Jaguars, the other Josh Allen, who's been one of the better pass rushers the last number of years. Last year, came second in sacks behind TJ Watt, 17.5. Great job for him. You know, he and now Trayvon Walker, who's been improving on the scene, they've been one of the interesting pass rushing duos in the league. Obviously, their defense took a step back despite their production. But yeah, if there's one guy that Jaguars on defense would like to keep on the wraps, to beat Josh Allen. Antoine Winfield Jr., after a very good job last year, He's getting the franchise tag. For the Bucks, interesting note as Mike Evans got a short-term extension, meaning that Baker Mayfield, the way it looks, will hit free agency starting next week. Jalen Johnson of the Bears, the good young corner, he's gotten the tag as well. Good pickup. Underrated guy for the Bears. And yeah, it's a good idea for them to use the franchise tag on him. Brian Burns. So, the talks the other day were that the Panthers and Burns, they stalled contract extension talks, but Brian Burns getting the franchise tag for the Panthers, at least trying. You know, you always think back to a couple years ago when it was reported that the Rams offered multiple first-round picks for him and extra. And them not going with that trade. Yeah. But at least keep him on the wraps. But certainly needed. Justin Madubuike for the Ravens got tagged as well after a career year for the Ravens. Absolutely needed, and because you know a team would certainly like to pay him. And he got tagged. Michael Pittman Jr. Yeah, another guy. Guess he get tagged. Yeah, pretty good slew of players to get tagged. And based on that seems based on next week, we'll see guys such as Kirk Cousins, even though he couldn't be tagged based on his deal. Chris Jones, Christian Wilkins, Baker Mayfield, Danielle Hunter, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, etc. are going to be set to hit the open market once the new league year starts next week. So that is pretty unique to see. But, you know, Josh Allen, I just mentioned, should resign. I think Jaguars absolutely need to resign him. Same with Bucks and Antoine Winfield. The weird thing, though, is Baker is a team possibly going to try to swoop in Baker way. And again, same sort of talks Bucks had last year when they signed Baker to a one-year deal. How much do they believe in Kyle Trask? Yes, he was a backup, but he lost that job. And when they try to draft a guy, I mean, it's possible. Danielle Hunter, he's had his fair share of success in Minnesota, but you never really know. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Should be fun. Couple weeks, though. Free agency. Yeah, we'll see. Don Schultz. He got an extension after a solid year with the Texans. Signed a 1-year deal last year. Posted a solid 635 yards and 5 touchdowns with CJ Stroud, but he's going to stay with them a little longer as he has signed a 3-year, $36 million deal. So for him. Jamal Adams released by, let's say the Seahawks are doing a little spring cleaning in their secondary, as they have released 2 solid veterans in Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs. Alas, they are getting younger in the secondary. We saw 2 years ago they drafted Tariq Woolen, who was a finalist defensive rookie year 2 years ago. Then last year they drafted Dev Witherspoon. You know, they also have Michael Jackson, who's a good corner as well. They drafted Jarek Reed out of New Mexico, who was doing a good job last year prior to getting hurt. You know, they got plenty of solid youth in the secondary, so solid for them there. But big one for coming out of Denver. That is Russell Wilson, set to be released, cut next week when the league year starts. Yeah. Russell Wilson. So, it's interesting how 2 years ago, when the AFC West was making moves to pair up with and battle the Chiefs, you know, thought, okay, with the Chargers getting Bosa paired with Khalil Mack, with the Broncos getting Russell Wilson being traded, and the Raiders getting Devontae Adams and Chandler Jones, we thought that division was going to be better. And the Chargers and Chiefs. Now, Chargers did make the playoffs as a wild card, loss in that big collapse for Jags, and then the Chiefs. So the Chiefs. And the Raiders look like they're improving, but not quite what we expected as far as the youth movement. And then the Broncos now just flat out released after 2 seasons. Now, I'm going to talk about both these two because they've obviously been compared a lot since getting their deals. Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. And their deals share a lot of similarities. Now, Russ obviously doesn't have the off-the-field stuff that Watson was dealing with when he was getting this deal, but nonetheless, there's plenty of similarities and fair share of skepticism for both. But in just talking about Russell Wilson, so 2 years ago, Nathaniel Hackett was the coach. First year, with the Broncos. New philosophy after them getting rid of Vic Fangio and went with the offensive style, went with Nathaniel Hackett. Now, Hackett obviously had a unique history in being, coordinator and offensive guy paired with the Jags and Aaron Rodgers deal. Nonetheless, there were expectations, a solid defense, a good core of playmakers. Nonetheless, their offense, for the most part, underperformed. It's like for a lot of weeks, getting to 17 points, 17, 20 points was a difficult thing to do. Now, some would argue Russ in regression. Some will argue Nathaniel Hackett. So anyway, last year, they hired Sean Payton. And you think, well, offense should improve. And the defense still do a stellar job. But yeah, the offense should improve. So, we saw it for a bit. As in, they came out the gates and it was not a pretty start. But during the mid-months, when they found momentum, as in they beat Chiefs. You can say what you want. Mahomes had the flu. Either way, they beat the Chiefs. Okay, so they beat the Packers, improving young Packer team that made the playoffs. Okay. Then they beat the Bills in a unique game when they were teetering, having crisis mid-season. But they beat the Bills. Then they beat the Vikings, who were having a roller coaster season, but they had momentum at the time. I was there for that game. It was a good game. Not pretty, but yeah. But we saw last year the offense made improvements. Offense was improving. Russ wasn't great, but he was good. The defense, we saw a pattern where Russ was good, and as long as he played clean, that they could go forward and be a competitor down the stretch and possibly make the playoffs. Then came the Lions game when it looked like they were overmatched. Patriots game on Christmas Eve looked like it was going to be a winnable game and came back to tie it, but lost it at the end, which ultimately factored into the benching for Jarrett Stidham. But nonetheless, we saw improvement, but in factoration of a contract, it wasn't what they paid him for the last 2 seasons. Now with Deshaun Watson, there's similarities, the contract, because obviously they can't really talk about one without talking about the other, or at least people comment on them. But Deshaun Watson is a little different because he had the suspension for 2 seasons ago. Came back, obviously he looked rusty. And last season, now he was dealing with injuries, but nonetheless, when Deshaun was playing football last year, there were times when it was like, yeah, winning football and with a solid defense. Yes, solid defense and offensive line, but you get the point that it wasn't what they were paying him for, or it hasn't been. Now, thankfully, Flacco came in and did well enough to push him to the playoffs, but you get the point. Anyway, Russ last season, he was good, but wasn't what he was paid for. So next week, tend to believe that he's going to be paid by a team just nowhere near what the Broncos paid him. I mean, that's sort of the dilemma we've seen. But, yeah, Russell Wilson is going to be paid by another team. Just, yeah, not anywhere near what he was traded for or signed for. So we'll see. But the one name I've been hearing the most about or rumor about has been the Steelers. Now, Kenny Pickett, it's been an odd start. First round QB, we expected some progression. Last season, didn't really happen. yes, the team has had 2 back-to-back 9+ win seasons, but Kenny Pickett, as far as his contribution, hasn't been great as far as a first-round QB is expected these days. And yeah, Russell Wilson, I'm not saying it would be a big upgrade, but based on how Kenny Pickett's played his first 2 seasons, I'd say it'd be a bit of an upgrade to where the Steelers want to go. Now, the issue is Broncos had I love Broderick Jones and Darnell Washington, but I'm not sure the much of a difference or much better offensive line in Pittsburgh than it was in Denver. Now, they could obviously make improvements in draft and free agency, but it's be an interesting get, certainly to say. We'll see. But certainly something to watch, I would say. But yeah, free agency, something to keep in mind. Jaguars also did some spring cleaning in their secondary, Darius Williams and Rayshon Jenkins. Probably in conclusion to help paying Josh Allen, we'll see. And eventually they're going to have to make a decision on Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, I get the point. Josh Donaldson retired after 13 seasons for baseball. Played with the A's and Toronto Blue Jays. Had some, and the Braves and the Twins. And the Yankees, but yeah, some good seasons out of him. 279 home runs, a pair of MVP-like seasons from Donaldson, but a heck of a career. Very soft for him, good for retirement. LeBron James, Mr. King James, the other day became the first in NBA history to count for 40,000 points. Considering how long he's been playing, it's not really that much of a rise, but something to add on the resume for a hell of a career for the King. And obviously, for those who still campaign LeBron versus Michael Jordan, this obviously a bone for their back, or a thing in their back pocket. So, goes for him. Goes for King James. A sour note for the Los Angeles Clippers as Russell Westbrook fractured his hand. Now, not too long how he's going to be out, but it's a bit of unfortunate for them as relatively the core has been or I should say the core has been relatively healthy. As far as Kawhi, Paul George, Harden, and Westbrook, this obviously low, but luckily it seems that Zubac is healthy again, so that's obviously a good get back for them, but we'll see around playoff time because this is obviously a team that they feel is inclined to make a deep playoff run. And with the way it seems, Minnesota, Denver, Los Angeles, and Oklahoma City, those are the 4 teams keep on to come out of the West and possibly win the chip. So, we'll see. But it's obviously a blow for the Clippers. Nick Sorensen, after some dispute and speculation, is now the new defense coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. So 3 defense coordinators, 3 seasons, last year Steve Wilkes, the year before, or actually 4 seasons, because 2 seasons ago, last year Steve Wilkes, year before DeMeco Ryans, for a few seasons. And now Nick Sorensen. They signed Brandon Staley, but so I imagine he'll have some input with defense, but assistant head coach. But yeah, Nick Sorensen, see how he does. 49ers, we could tell they had the ammo and artillery and the piece on defense last season, but we could tell there was not as much production, or not as expected, and perhaps that was the scheme. And Steve Wilkes, some change on defense. Hopefully Sorensen can provide, because yeah, they almost probably should have lost to the Packers. They probably should have lost to the Lions, but didn't. And then ultimately, despite keeping Patrick Mahomes and company to 3 points at half, they did lose to the Chiefs in overtime on the biggest stage in all, the Super Bowl. So, if there was time to, they didn't need to release Wilkes, but we can definitely see why they did. NFL Combine. Well, first, before I gotta say, as a big spokesperson in the community, unfortunately has passed away the other day, and being Chris Morrison, the now retired longtime reporter for ESPN, has unfortunately passed away at the age of 72. Morrison, when it comes to draft time, obviously my go-to throughout the years has been NFL Network. Although, especially since I've been induced in sports over the last decade, been out of ESPN and etc. Have of course seen Chris Mortensen a number of times throughout the years, although it wasn't my preferred network. Still, Chris Mortensen being there for as long as he did have throat cancer, or was diagnosed in 2016, and then had to step away for a bit, but he would still be active in the ESPN community and obviously a part of the NFL and sports fan base, and did retire recently, last year, the year before. Either way, was that for a number of years, and provide some good moments and insight, and a difficult loss for the NFL and reporting family. It's unfortunate, but thoughts out for his family and etc. and all affected by it. But rest in peace, Chris Mortensen. And lastly, a part of the episode, I want to talk about the NFL Combine, as of course it happened from Thursday through Sunday. People have mixed reviews about, or mixed opinions about the Combine. Ultimately, it's about seeing guys practice at the end of the day and saying, away from the games, away from all the nuances. And it's interesting seeing coaches and faculty involved watching these prospects, practice and show what they can do and first-hand experience, in drills, etc. Obviously, the 40-yard dash is obviously the favoritism as far as the fast guys of the Combine, in which we saw history as Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas. Obviously, the two guys out of Texas were obviously to keep on. And it's funny considering that his teammate, Adonai Mitchell, ran a very good 40 of his own at 4.35. But history was made at the Combine on Saturday as Xavier Worthy ran the fastest Combine in history, 4.21. It was officially diagnosed as, Xavier Worthy now fastest. And those are things that perk up GM or executives' eyebrows or ears, because while he is not Marvin Anderson Jr., Rome Odunze, or Malik Neighbors, or say Brian Thomas Jr. or Keon Coleman, he is certainly in that next tier of guys that he could very well fall at the end of the draft or end of the first round. He is definitely a day 2 guy, or at worst. But yeah, it's certainly possible he can fall in the end of the first round. But a couple guys I want to talk about as well for the combine. One I just mentioned because you like to see improvement. So, Keon Coleman. He, tall guy from big guy. Well, he and his teammate, Johnny Wilson, who very well could be a tight end, was about over 6'6". But Keon Coleman, he didn't run a very fast compared to the others combine or 40-yard dash. But when it came to the gauntlet of catching passes, on the run, he ran the fastest out of all of them. Same with Puka. So, Nakua last year. So, I mean, if there's a building ground or, you don't have to run as fast as you need to, but, Keon Coleman is certainly a guy to watch. He kind of has that DK Metcalf type of feel to him. Big athletic guy that can certainly make those stout catches, but we'll see. Or AJ Brown even too. But yeah, we'll see. As far as quarterbacks, gotta talk about JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix. Those guys certainly put on a show as, Jaden Daniels wasn't present. Caleb Williams was present, but he didn't do any drills. And Drake May. So, they're on the other tier. J.J. McCarthy, I thought, did very well for his combine. It's always tough because with drafts and stuff, we hyped up these prospects and we don't want to go here or there. We want everyone to succeed. But unfortunately, whether it's bad expectations or, bad fits or hyperbole, not everyone succeeds. And that's the thing, or as succeeds as the others. So, yeah, certainly something about McCarthy and Penix. Certainly were the go-to as far as throwing drills for quarterbacks. Melton has a very good arm as well at Tennessee. I think we all expected it. He has a rocket for accelerator of tight throws. So, but yeah, a couple guys got to talk to. But, we had some good performances all around. Braden Fisk, he had, like a 4.7 40 and did very well out of Florida State for defense lineman. He's a guy to look out for. Joe Alt, the projected number one lineman or offensive lineman out of Notre Dame. He has solid showing. 505, but still solid for an offensive lineman. Yeah, it's going to be a fun couple weeks as we gear towards the draft. But yeah, talked about a few things. But nonetheless, thank you all for joining me today on the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it for sorts of topics. If you did, click that like and the subscription box there in the corner. Thumbs up as well if you guys liked the video. Thank you all. See you guys next time. See you guys next week. as we are geared towards, sports heavy topics. UFC 299 this Saturday. Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera. Expect a unique main event, so keep it going. And gear up towards sports. We're close to March Madness, so keep an eye out, folks. Keep an eye out. Peace.